It's another episode of the official Catchup. I'm back for a third week in succession. People will be talking about who's been here week in, week out, bringing you all the best news, views, and reviews on the everything going on in Lowland League, East Scotland, West Scotland, and the South of Scotland Football League. But firstly, as ever, I'll introduce my good friend Chris. Chris, how you doing?
Yeah, not bad. Good. I always say that. I always have two answers, good and not bad. But no, it's always great to obviously be on chatting about football as we do, as we've done for years now, Ben. Obviously, I mentioned on Twitter, but the numbers were really great for our preview episodes, so hopefully we can continue with that. I don't know, a part of it was probably a wee bit of full, taking notes of to see who we put down so the folk
Get
can
your
come back
receipts
at
in
us.
early, aye. But I mean,
Definitely.
people have came at us very quickly on some of the comments and already coming back to bite them in the arse. I'll say, but I'm sure we'll touch on that at some point, Chris, over the course of the evening. But we'll start where we always will. Will be the Lowland League full card of fixtures on Saturday. We're into the third game of the Lowland League season, playing the kind of Saturday midweek, Saturday run so far. So starting to see the league take shape as sorts, but we don't read too much into the results, man. But I mean, we'll start off with East Kilbride drawing one each with Stirling Uni. I mean, if anyone was it watching Cohen Rangers today, they think that the league is over because you drew in a game, the first game of the season. But East Kilbride, I'm sure they'll be fine. But I mean, for all intents and purposes, we expected a lot from East Kilbride, but we know Stirling Uni are a good outfit. Maybe a few losses over the summer, but still a well-drilled, well-oiled machine. Are Stirling Uni, and a great point. It's not easy. I know not an easy place for anyone to go. It's fourth bank to play Stirling Uni on their home park, and certainly a point for Stirling Uni. Points dropped probably in East Kilbride's mind.
Yeah, of course. But then again, obviously, them going down to 10 men. Gally Roy got sent off in that game. If anything, maybe Stirling of old might have been a wee bit disappointed not to hold on there. And I'm sure it's still the same. I'm sure that's the same mentality because I know Chris was not happy midweek by the sounds of things to the loss against Cumbernauld Colts. So he did want a reaction. Decent reaction against an East Kilbride team, which, let's face it, they're among the title challengers. We expect them to be there at the end of the season. In terms of the pick out, it's obviously Andy Stirling. We know the quality of Andy. He's scored an absolute peach of a goal. Sang about EK and scoring peaches of goals when we're talking about them, to begin with. So for me, he's been really impressive. I think he was man of the match against Broomhill. Don't think he played against Gretna, but to get the equalising goal against Stirling Uni, hence he's in the team of the month. I've also kind of been impressed by Andy McDonald at the back. East Kilbride look really solid defensively, but I'm sure there'll be loads of EK players feature in teams of the month and whatnot. But them two in particular, I've been impressed with. But there probably is a slight bias in the fact that these guys, I've not seen them in the Lowland League before, so there is a slight bias. Like, oh, that guy's actually really great. Apart from obviously, I know Andy Stirling's really great, but I was less familiar with Andy McDonald, and really good pickup from East Kilbride. And yeah, 1-1 fair result, I guess, given the red card from East Kilbride. But it would have been interesting to see what would have happened there if the red card didn't happen. But
yeah, I mean, we know East Kilbride are a good side. That's something we've said all along in this podcast. That's not going to be something new that we'll say that they're stacked in quality. I remember talking elsewhere the other day, and I took a screenshot of their starting lineup on Wednesday night, and I was like, look, this team are ridiculous. Like, on paper, they are brilliant, and that's the bit you've got to then convert into is that team that's on paper, can they go and win a championship? They look like they're capable of, from what I've seen so far. They'll only get better. They'll be able to strengthen if they get into a sticky spell, maybe with injuries. They'll have the depth to start with, but if they need to and need to go and strengthen, they'll be able to do it. That's the thing about East Kilbride. Very, very similar, obviously, to what Darvel were like under Mick Kennedy. So we know they're going to be capable. That's the way they'll always be. But for me, Stirling Uni, they're always going to be a good side. They're always going to be a top half side in this division. No doubts about that. We'll see what happens, obviously, with their squad as it starts to maybe kind of find its feet a bit more. There'll be guys that are trying to win places in the side and try and keep their shirt now, because the better players, that were starting probably last season who moved on, I think we've talked about them, Matty Burrows, Ben Fry, etc., Callum Ray, the guys we talked about all last season, who have moved on. There's spots on the side for maybe guys in the seconds, guys who were in the fringes last year, maybe guys that are coming into the uni. You don't know what will happen with Stirling Uni in that sense, that when the new intake for the summer cup comes in September, they might have a couple of players that appear from, like we've seen it with, was it Ben Heal, Chris, the guy you always talk about, was it West Ham, was it youth player?
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure he was scouted by Chris, but there has been a couple of guys that I know currently in the team. I think the goalkeeper Jan, he pretty much approached Chris while he was at the uni, saying, "Oh, can I, now he's their starting keeper after Ben Fry left." So yeah, I mean, there is a chance that that could happen.
But that's how the uni system works. Is that, like, you see that for for all the uni teams, whether it's Edinburgh, Glasgow, Heriot Watt, Stirling Uni reserves, I guess, as well. You could add them into the mix. There's plenty of uni sides that play in the pyramid system that rely on that to happen, I think. And now the Glasgow, Stirling Uni are probably in that kind of favoured category where they can probably attract players to come and play to go to their uni. So it's definitely possible that they could have somebody turn up maybe in September, as I say, and want to play at a decent level, or has played at a decent level perhaps in England or maybe Ireland or Wales or maybe even abroad. That's the way of the world. And I think, Chris, we've talked about this maybe, and it'll lead on to another team that we're going to talk about next, but you've kind of raised this with us a few times about that kind of scholarship type route. You think maybe that's a good way to go in terms of maybe recruitment of players? It's something that obviously Cali Braves, who we'll come on to next, do and have done quite successfully over the years.
I think the issue with Cali Braves and their previous approach was obviously Brexit. I think that's affected the whole previously Edisport with bringing in the French players are kind of going down a different route. They obviously brought in the Bernie White, the American keeper. I'm not sure if he was directly from a college or whatever, but I think it was interesting. I'm sure we'll talk about when we come to a West player later in terms of scholarships and whatnot. But look, it's not, it happens, I should say, even at this level. We've seen there's another player at Cali Braves, actually, the likes of Harvey Moyes, who's been in America, who was at college in America. We've seen a lot of non-league players, young guys, go to America, go to the likes of Australia, even Dubai, who I'm sure we'll mention later, the United Arab Emirates, I should say. A lot of moves to the likes of Sweden and Iceland, for example, that I've seen in the past. So in terms of their players coming to Scotland, I'd like to see more of that. Particularly like in America, I think it would be interesting to see more of that. Whether it's a feasible approach for your lower league clubs in terms of like way down the divisions, I'm not too sure. But you would expect maybe a Lowland League team, a well managed team, to be able to maybe put something together there in terms of scholarships. If they're at Cali Braves level, obviously, or someone at that level, I'm not expecting maybe like 5 American scholars to turn up at Craig Royston or anything like that. I don't know, but I think it's an interesting thing. But I suppose it depends on visas, and I'm sure there would have to be links formed with colleges and affiliations. It'd be good to see that with some more teams abroad, if possible. Obviously, I don't know the visa surroundings, or I'm guessing them being there for education makes it a lot easier as well if they were here, obviously at uni or college, for example.
Yeah, I think you see the sponsorship. I think, is it Particab? Is it First Point USA? They kind of do the reverse. I think they find kind of lads in the UK, or probably men and women in the UK at this point in time, who go out to America to do the scholarship route into America rather than. So there could be probably a feasible way to do it coming back the way. I think you probably do have issues with likes of visas. Like, they cost a lot more money now. I know from experience with watching ice hockey in Britain, you have a lot of Americans and Canadians and some kind of Eastern European players coming over and playing, and in fact even some Scandinavian players come over and play.
Yep.
And it's a wee bit harder now. They cost more. I think the other thing as well is the cost of living is different, and the exchange rates and money, and it maybe doesn't incentivize players to come over. I don't know how it would work in terms of the scholarship route, but certainly I'd love to see more of that. Everyone loves a kind of unknown quantity, maybe coming from a different country, maybe comes in with a bit of skill, a bit of flair, a bit of talent that stands out. That you never know what you can get with players coming from all over the world, and it'd be good to embrace that and mix it up a bit, because we probably do see the same same guys coming into the leagues that are the same guys that have been round the clubs and round the divisions and dropping through the pyramid. But maybe thinking outside the box one day, maybe a club can go and do that. Maybe we're pitching an idea here for clubs who will now go away and all create a scholarship platform. And if they do, then Chris and I want the full.
I need to maybe call Chris Ewan and get his advice on it, because obviously he might have lots of experience, obviously with the French lads at former Edasport. So I would be interested. I don't know if that will be their approach. Obviously, we did mention Calibraves are sort of pushing towards American investors heavily. So I do wonder if there's going to be other links made there. Obviously, I mentioned the likes of Bernie White, the American keeper coming in. It was probably less of a challenge with Bernie, because I believe he was born in the UK. I think he was born in Liverpool. So it's a case of him, I think, being in America since he was 7 and then coming back. So it's probably a lot easier for him than potentially being just an American citizen, if you will, just coming over. So, and I'm sure there's family and accommodation here for him, or if he's coming from work or whatever. So if you're a student, I think it's probably a wee bit more difficult. But for me, it's a whole interesting route to take. But I think you will have to be not so much a top team, but sort of either have connections or people willing to pay or help out, or sponsorship and scholarships and whatnot. So yeah, interesting.
Talking about Calibri, and they lost 2-0 away to Broomhill, and it was like a pretty convincing win in the end for Broomhill.
Yeah, I mentioned the last episode. I mean, I'm still quite shocked that people thought they were going to be bottom half. It's bemusing. I actually think they've signed really well. I've been really impressed with Dan Higgins. I think he got the score sheet at the weekend as well. They look really solid defensively. I think they've only conceded 2 goals, if I remember correctly. And they've just signed Alfie Robinson, who I talked up a lot last season at Cowden Beef. I thought he was a standout almost every game I've seen him in. I'm actually more confident about Broomhill. I think Paul Kennedy, who also put in the team of the month, playing in the SPFL last season, didn't really know too much about him, but he seems to be involved in everything good going forward with Broomhill. So two guys that deserve to be in the team of the month. And Broomhill, I do wonder if a lot of it's to do with maybe open goal fans looking at it and thinking, oh, they're going to just fail now because open goal have left. But it's not reality. Broomhill were always a decent team under Swifty, and obviously Swifty, Martin Green coming back, and Ross Smith obviously getting a goal at the weekend as well. I think it was that was the thing. There was 2 goals from a corner, if I remember correctly. So defend from corners, I guess, will be Ricky Waddle's training plan, this week. But I don't think Cali Braves have done that badly either, in fairness to them. Jamie Watson's been on the score sheet a couple of times over the last few games. It's been difficult for them, but yeah, I guess they were one of the teams that I thought would probably be bottom half, but they're actually... I'm less concerned with them than I would have been also. So interesting on that.
No, definitely. I think you mentioned Alfie Robinson. I've just seen that sign on Saturday morning as I was heading to the game, and was very impressed with that. I thought he was a good player for Cowden Beath, like you've said, and a kind of player that I noticed was kind of out of contract and hadn't signed anywhere a few weeks back, and started to kind of look to see maybe if he can be an option for ourselves, but obviously more than capable of playing at a much higher level than Cohen and Rangers. So yeah, it's a good pickup. As you say, they've recruited well. Broomhill will be absolutely spot on. They'll be... It's too early to say anything about challenging based on 3 games. I think you're right about the open goal thing. I think they're definitely going to have that stick for the next probably season, maybe even longer. And that's just unfortunately the way it will be. And that's kind of one of the pitfalls of going down that route that they took. They took a chance there that could have worked out really well for them. It didn't. Other than for me, the documentary, I think that's probably the only shining light of the Broomhill experience. I think I've talked about that in detail already, so I'm not going into that too much. But the one thing I did notice, Chris, was the Broomhill Facebook page still hasn't been transferred back to to Broomhill, as in the Broomhill we know. It's still got the old open goal Broomhill badge, but it seems to be someone updating it anyway. I don't really know what's going on. I found that really odd because they open goal put out a post, I think, on Thursday or Friday, kind of saying the end, and that was kind of the final chapter of the documentary being done, dusted, and all that. But they're still hanging on at the Facebook page. For me, that's a bit odd. Hopefully, if someone does pay attention, then they can sort of transfer that back across.
Is that you revealing some insider knowledge there? Is it?
No, I paid attention. It was on my feed, and I seen it, and I was like, that doesn't seem like it's still been updated as in the current games, but it wasn't. It was still the old badge. It still said open goal Broomhill. Didn't really know why that was. It didn't seem like it was as regular as, for example, the Twitter account, and I just felt like, oh no, that's a wee bit different. So no insider knowledge per se.
To be fair, if someone's doing Michael's job for him on Facebook,
perhaps maybe that's that. But I mean, you get that. You do get that sometimes at this level of football. I've noticed that you get one guy does the Facebook, one guy does the Twitter, another guy does the Instagram. Somebody's doing the TikTok. It's like someone only does highlights. I do the program. And next thing you know, you get 7 folk in a media team doing different things, and they all look different. It rips man. And personally, I'd hate it if someone was doing different bits across my club. But I know it happens, and you can tell with the clubs where it happens because the consistency is not quite there. And for me, the Broomhill one, that's why it stood out, because I think we know Michael obviously quite well, and we know what he's capable of in terms of content and stuff like that. And it just was a bit different to what was happening. Not different. It was just, I think, not as regular was the thing that caught my eye on Facebook when I was scrolling through. And
just another note, obviously, on the Broomhill Braves game, it was a wee bit interesting to see from our Broomhill players at the Braves. I think they were all under-20s. Obviously, Josh Gemmell was on the bench. I think he played for the successful under-20s team last season, Broomhill, who I think won one of the cups against East Kilbride. And a player that I'm quite excited about, and I thought was a really good pickup, Lewis Thompson, the winger. I think he's a really good pickup from Cali Braves. I don't know the ins and outs of these guys leaving Broomhill. We heard different things, obviously. Don't know if they're true or not, or just rumour or whatever. But especially when it comes to under-20s, I don't know. But yeah, I think Braves have signed a few players. I think we mentioned it when we were talking about in our preview that Ricky Waddle has these targets in him. Like, he always seems to bring in players that you probably heard of, and probably someone else was looking at, but he's managed to convince them to go to the Braves. And yeah, I'm actually more excited about the Braves this season than I was initially. So, but yeah, Lewis Thompson, I think that's a class pickup. I really think he's a really good player, and he set up goal, I think, opening day. So it will be interesting to see where the Braves go from there.
Yeah, maybe that is another one of the positives that came out of the whole open goal thing, that they also had a very successful season. The Broomhill under-20s last season, won in the cup and stuff like that. So Robbie Halliday being the coach alongside his brother Andy, supporting them. Very, very good coaches at that youth level. I think Robbie had came from maybe Rangers or Partick and was able to develop players really well, and brought in the guys that you mentioned there last season who maybe got a kind of bit of a short window and were able to move up into first team football, which is a good thing. I think there's a few other players from that 20 side that have also moved on, as well as some of the younger players that were in that in the Broomhill side from last year. So yeah, definitely good to see. Looking forward to seeing what Broomhill can do, I think, as well. I think for me that's the other thing that stands out going forward, of having to strip it back and almost start again from scratch. There's always talk about the lack of fan base and all that kind of stuff that comes with Broomhill, but it's only going to build, and I think the success on the park will help that for sure. Playing it at the Barton will also bring its advantages. Obviously, I'm not going to say it's a great pitch, but because it has its problems usually in the winter when multiple teams are trying to play on it. But the stadium and the surroundings, and definitely think Broomhill are on the up. Moving on then to the next game, is Celtic B 2, Caledonian B 2. Celtic B started a bit slow this season, Chris. Caledonian B, on the other hand, a much more positive start for them.
Yeah, their first league game, obviously, having played in the Viaplay, and they had quite respectable results in the Viaplay, I thought. Jamie Docherty, formerly at Tranent, and obviously Kilbride, really been the star man, I think. And I guess the only thing to say about that result is Ken Beef will be gutted to throw away the lead there and allow Celtic B back into the game. I suppose the positive for Celtic B is that they've showed a wee bit of grit there to get back, and there's not really much to say, obviously, given the fact that it's Cowden Beef's first league game. But I think you're right in terms of Celtic being slow to get out of the trap. So I can't read too much into it being Cowden Beef's first league game. But decent result overall, because if you thought maybe Cowden Beef last season compared to last season, you would probably expect Celtic B to put a lot past Cowden Beef. And I think they did on numerous occasions. So, yeah, improved result. But, yeah, Cowden Beef will be gutted not to take the 3 points.
Couple of draws in the league on Saturday with Civil Service Strollers 0, East Stirlingshire 0, and the Gallifreyan Rovers 1, Heartsby 1. Not much to say on both those games, Chris. A bit of kind of meh results, if you like. It's Heartsby's first kind of drop points they were looking. Obviously, started quite strongly in the league this year. They dropping a couple on Saturday. Civil and the kind of team kind of a bit like Celtic B, very kind of mixed bag of results in the first three. Gala, the very same. East Stirlingshire, a team that have probably started the poorest of the four we mentioned.
Yeah, it's a wee bit gutting though, because Strollers and East Stirlingshire games historically between them have always been quite exciting goal fests. So to have a 0-0 is pretty rare in that fixture. So it's two teams that are very evenly matched, I would say. They always seem to go hammer and tong, but maybe it's the case of previous being the issue there, where managers kind of don't want to have too much high nerves when it comes to the action, I guess. But Gala, yeah, it's still early days. I think we've got to remember that it's still early days. But in fairness, I think Hart's goal was, a deflected corner. Bobby McLucky puts it in and it deflects off a Gala defender. So I don't think the game was that great in terms of the action. And I talked about Gala. I think they like to play football a really good way. Coming up against a Hearts team that probably are the same, I would say. Football on the deck type stuff. So it is difficult when two teams have a similar style. You end up getting these sort of 0-0, 1-1 draws. Not much between the sides, or it goes the other way and there's absolute goal fests.
Another draw. Talk about then. It's all about draws today. It's Berwick 0, Cumbernauld Colts 0, and I guess dropped points for Cumbernauld Colts in the sense that they started the season quite strongly. Nobody expected Cumbernauld Colts to come out flying and win the first two, and still well on top. I mean, I say it's an away trip to Berwick. It's not going to be it's never going to be an easy journey. To come away with a point, you're probably quite happy at this stage in the season to come away from a place like Berwick with a point. But certainly, Cumbernauld Colts are probably shocking quite a few at this point, Chris.
I laughed that you said that it's dropped points for Colts there. That's brilliant. I love it. I love that energy. Like, obviously, Colts have been fantastic so far. 3 clean sheets in the first 3 games, which is fantastic. Obviously,
I hope Gregory Taddy's back on Twitter at some point. He was in good form the other night. I think some people were criticising Cumbernauld Colts, but Gregory Taddy had a few things to say about that. Certainly, I thought that amused me, I must admit.
Yeah, he's a good guy, obviously, and he seems like he's very loyal to the Colts, having been there. And fair play. I like the Colts, obviously. I'm showing a wee bit of bias, but back to the clean sheets. Obviously, Ryan Adamson, 3 and 3 for him. I know there was some Colts fans disappointed that there wasn't a lot of more defenders in the team of the month.
Can't please everyone.
Yeah, it's tough. I do think the issue is there is reasons behind my picks. Believe me, I know I got some stick because obviously Cammy Cammy Ross wasn't in there from Tranent, who's scored 4 goals in 3 games. But the logic being that is should have had Mackenzie Kirk in there. He scored 4 against Gretna, hasn't scored in 2 games, but because he scored 4 in Gretna, did I put them in the team of the month? I don't think so.
Everyone gets upset. It usually ends up being somebody's mom or cousin or best mate or someone like that gets upset because somebody's not in it. But
I did have a back and forth with the bull, the Tranent bull. Obviously, he had a bit of a go at me, but it's fun. It's fun and banter. I'm no doubts that Tranent players will feature not only in the team of the month, but it's like I said to them. I mean, I think they'll win the league, so obviously I rate them. But Billy Mortimer, I mean, brilliant. Scored. A lot of people are criticising Colts because they've only scored 4 goals, but Billy Mortimer scored them all. So he had to be in the team of the month, I guess. Luke McCarville's been one for me because he's a young lad, teenager, and I think he's similar to Paul Kennedy at Broomhill. He's been involved in everything good that the Colts have done so far. I guess that's why he got the nod over Cammy Ross. And obviously I had to have Ryan Porteous in there. I'm sure we'll get to Bo'ness, but Ryan Porteous has been fantastic. So there is reasons behind my choices, believe me. And it is tough. There is often not just 1 or 2 guys, but 3, 4 that I'm thinking about. And every name that usually comes up, or for example, Hawkins at Bo'ness, thought about him. Cammy Ross, thought about him. So there is every name that comes up. Usually, I've already thought about, and they've probably been in the team. And then I'm thinking, right, between him and him off the board. And it's just what it is. So yeah, good to be back on the team of the month thing. Still more support than stick, unlike previous years. So I appreciate it.
Let's just also remind everyone that it's Chris that picks the team of the year, the team of the month. He puts all the work and effort into scoping out the whole Lowland League to decide on players. So don't come at me if you've got any problems with your selections. It's all Chris. It's all Chris.
And sometimes I do ask if I'm not unsure.
We have a conversation maybe about there's a guy that's on the fence, then Chris will maybe ping myself and. Sometimes Mosler gets a chip in as well. He gets his penny in just to give us a view. But I think Chris knows exactly what he's talking about. It's a couple of guys' opinions effectively. Or represents a couple of guys' opinions on the league. And believe it or not, people, I've said this before, I've said it loads. People like to hear what we think and sometimes agree with what we say. They don't. But this is the nature of podcasting world, and we're not going to please everyone all the time. We've seen in the past with other team of the seasons and things like that, people get a wee bit upset, and that just happens, unfortunately. But yeah, you mentioned a couple of players there, Ryan Porteous and Lewis MacArthur, Chris. Moving straight on to Bo'ness United, they beat Tranent away 2-1 and at the top of the table with 9 points.
Fantastic. I mean, who could call that start? We did say they might shock a few. Did I think they would go on and win their first 3? Probably not. To win over a team like Tranent, obviously, who I do rate, as I mentioned, I think they'll still go on and win the league. It's an early blip for Tranent. Tranent have a fantastic team. I'm more confident in Bo'ness. I'm not going to get too carried away. I don't think, in fairness to the Bo'ness fans, I don't think they are either, which is great. I just think if Bo'ness continue the way they are, and I'm not trying to hype anyone up here, I think they'll at least be pushing top half. If they continue with the great results, I don't know what else they need. By the way, I'm trying to think of. I think they've been really strong defensively. They're obviously scoring goals. They've got creativity in terms of Ryan Porteous. They're doing a wee bit of a switch between Scott Diao and Finn Malcolm up front. There's a lot of good happening at Bo'ness, and I like to see it. And yeah, obviously the keeper, Musa, he's solid. They have a very solid team, and I'm more confident that they'll be top half. Come back to me with Bo'ness in about another 5-6 games, and if they're near the top of the league, then my opinion and my excitement for them might change. But I think perfect. That's the one word I can describe for the first 3 games. Absolutely perfect to get 9 points out of them. But yeah, I'm trying to temper my expectations. I know probably Bo'ness fans are getting probably feet on the ground type thing, but I am actually looking at them and thinking they are a strong team. But I've got to remember there's other strong teams, obviously. And great result on Saturday. Not worried about Tranent; they'll bounce back. I'm not too concerned about Tranent.
If it all goes to shit for Bo'ness, then the catch-up curse is well and truly active.
I'm not predicting anything other than the. I think they could shock a few, and they certainly have the first 3 games anyway.
It could be like the reverse Darvel Utd, that they told everyone that Darvel would win the league by Christmas, and then look how that played out. So it does happen within the season. So we'll keep an eye.
Yeah, in terms of curses, actually, I've noticed something. Everyone calls me out on calling East Kilbride, title favourites, but no one ever calls me out on the fact that I pretty much have Edinburgh Uni down every season, and they've not been relegated yet. So is that a reverse curse?
A reverse could be the reverse curse. Chris could be. If it's Edinburgh Uni this year, then
that's why I do it secretly. Secretly, that's why I do it.
Trying to save them, yeah. In that case, then that's pretty concerning then for Gretna 2008, who lost 9-2 to Linlithgow Rose, coming off a 7-0 defeat to East Kilbride on Wednesday night as well. Chris, we're talking about tempering expectations and not reading too much into things this early this season, but 3 games in and they have shipped 23 goals in 3 games. That's not a start to be favoured by at all by any team. There'll be teams in this division that probably finish the season having only conceded 23 goals, and very much must be concerning for Gretna.
Yeah, look, we don't tend to kick teams when they're down. I think it's a golden rule. We're often critical on teams that we expect better off, I guess. Obviously, last season, East Kilbride, we mentioned them a lot. I think a lot of people might have fell out with us over it as well. But look, 3 games in, shipping 23 goals, not great. What do you really say? I mean, I watched the highlights and I thought defensively, just no there at all. Terrible. And I will use that word because it really was. There was a couple of mistakes in there. I think one by the keeper. You can forgive mistakes, but it just looks like Gretna are all over the place. And you can just tell. I mean, even just seeing Linlithgow's goals, I think one of them, there was one of the players was running down the wing and there's about 2, 3, 4 guys going after him. And it just shows a lack of trust in your own teammates to try and chase down the one guy. You're leaving the other Linlithgow player alone in the box to get an easy goal. They just look like a team of strangers, honestly. I think that's the best way to describe it. There's no trust there. There's no shape. Very hard to spot what they're trying to do in terms of formation, for structure. Look, they're all young guys as well. I think we need to be careful here because I will never write off, particularly a young player. So there's one player, and the whole time I've covered non-league that I've had no hope for. I'm not obviously going to name him. He doesn't even play football now, so I think that's probably a good thing. Yeah, he doesn't even play football now. He's a young guy. For whatever reason, and this is why I won't name him because it's a bit slightly harsh. I only maybe saw what I'm playing 4, 5, 6 games, so I might have just been very unlucky to see him in the worst games possible. But yeah, none of these guys are good players. You look at the captain, Jay Riley, good player. Robbie Iveson for the Gretna goal was fantastic. Done a lot of this stuff himself. Gretna look like they have a threat going forward, but they're leaking so many goals. And to me, they need experience. Is Jay Riley the right guy to be captain there at his age? Not for me. And it's nothing against Jay. I think he's a good player, but you need an experienced head. And I'm not against young captains, but when you've got such a young team of boys rather than grown men, it's tough to compete. And some of these guys have played at the level last year with Dalbeattie, and they were used to these heavy defeats, unfortunately. And you don't want that mentality of the heads go down after conceding 2, 3. Yesterday's game, that didn't happen. They did get back into the game, but they're just not great defensively. It's probably one of the worst defensive performances I've seen. And I've seen teams in non-league ship more goals and defend better. Yeah, I don't know if you managed to see the highlights, Ben.
No, I've not. It's not something I've managed to catch up on yet. I've obviously with my own season starting back up yesterday. It take a bit more time to get into your own stuff and cover off the things you've got to do there. But yeah, I think like I've said before, like I don't want to see Gretna do badly. That's not what we were all about. It's just honesty, and from what we've seen, from what we've seen so far, it just seems like that way. That's the case, and I mean, it's still early doors. They can turn that around. That's probably the positive you can give Gretna fans or the team, if the players or whatever. That there's plenty of time on your side here. It's not as if you're in February, March, and you're struggling to get results, and it's been like that for a whole long season. But I think you'll need to do something quick, and whether is it because of a new team, perhaps, and maybe by
I think gel's a part of it,
by October, maybe November, you'll maybe come out the other side of that and maybe get a bit of form. But I think that's the thing that they'll have to do. Obviously, I think said all along they've got to keep pace with probably Edinburgh Uni as we look at it now. But we don't know an awful lot about them at the moment. Obviously, they've lost. Already this season didn't play Saturday because I guess Albion Rovers were featured.
They have kept just to cut in there, Ben. Edinburgh Uni have kept a couple of players that have experience. David Maskery being their key player. Lewis, who's been at the uni, I noticed were on the score sheet against Sybil. So I'm more confident about uni, which is not what Gretna fans want to hear. I'm guessing the worry I have for Gretna. I'm sorry to jump in there, Ben, but I don't want to. The worry is, I've read somewhere. I think Jonathan had said that they're going to change things up already. This is the bad thing, because if you don't believe in the players or don't think they're good enough, that falls down on the manager that brought them in, surely. And I like Gills. I'm not trying to criticise him, right? But either stick with them now, and hopefully they'll gel. But if you don't think they're good enough, you're going to have the same issue. I mean, you saw it so much with Gretna last year. You're going to have a continuous renewal of different teams, and they'll never gel because you're not given the opportunity and time. And it goes back to what I said about writing people off. I wouldn't write any of these young lads off. I think some of them are probably maybe not at the level in terms of your East Kilbrides, your top teams, but you wouldn't expect them to be. You know, they've not had the experience of many of them. Sorry, I should say, not all of them. I've had the experience of playing in the SPFL and whatnot. So it really depends on what the ambitions and expectations are for Gretna fans, and it always seems like it's really high. And I just don't see it. And that's why I don't see it, because they're not signing, in my opinion, high caliber players that you would expect to be top 8, top 6, top 4, even top half. You know, they're just not that team. The players, and I'm not saying the players aren't good enough. I'm just saying they're not good enough yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's what's going to happen. I think they're always going to be at that disadvantage, isn't it? I think recruiting probably to a team like Gretna is probably quite difficult. I'm under no illusions that that's probably quite hard to do, but certainly for me, yeah, it'll need to take something good to turn that around, and I hope they do. I keep saying it, but I think we came under a bit of criticism for making kind of more negative comments about it, and I think. I don't want to be that guy that says, "Oh, I told you so," but don't come at us if you don't like their opinions. That's the thing that I don't really like, is that we've said stuff that we've been honest about. They've come at us and made some comments. And
look, the difficult thing is now, I mentioned a daily stick or twist. The problem is, if you leave it too long and you're getting beat, you know, you're shipping 7 goals every week, who's going to want to come to your club? You know what I mean? So they have to think fast.
That's a problem,
really, yeah.
And probably what Dalbeattie had last season. We'll probably just cover Dalbeattie just shortly, but they probably had that issue last season where trying to recruit guys in who knew that at the bottom of the table, who were struggling, and it's not as if it's like 5 minutes from Glasgow City Centre where if it doesn't work out there, you can move to another club, and within the league you've only got limited options if you're either from down that way, or your travel has it got to be worth it. I mean, I personally wouldn't want to be doing probably 2.5 hours, maybe potentially 3 hour journeys that you need to do on a Saturday to play in a situation like that can't be enjoyable for anyone. So yeah, I totally get it, and I hope it works out for Gretna. That's all I'm going to say on that. But
it goes back to that thing that we kind of talked about last season. Gretna have went local again because I believe that's what fans want. But I made a remark about, I think you're limited with local at Gretna. You know what I mean? You either go North England or maybe South Scotland if you're going to go with local players, and you're very much limiting yourself to those regions. And I don't think it's anywhere in terms of comparison between your Glasgow regions, your Fife, your Lothians. There's so many more people and players to choose from there. And I think the issue with Gretna, they've always had an issue with training because they weren't going local, obviously, with players training on their own. I would expect that the boys are training together now if they're all local to the ground or local to Gretna or near enough. I hope that's happening because it certainly doesn't look like it so far. Like I mentioned, they just look like strangers, and I think a lot has to change at Gretna even this early. But we have to give them benefit of the doubt and realise that we're only 3 games in. But the more it goes on in terms of these results, and I really hate seeing it because I really like Gills, I like Jonathan, I like some of the players. Robbie Iverson's obviously I mentioned, but it's a difficult one. It really is difficult, and I don't like laying into them. But we've talked about these issues before with Gretna, and we're 3 games in, and it does look really concerning for them. But they just need a structure in place, their tactics, whatever needs to be done to get these guys. Because to me, they are good enough, at least to be, a few places up or at least challenge that spot. But they're not showing it at the moment, and they're shipping far too many goals. But yeah, we've probably talked enough, I guess, negatively about Gretna.
Moving on, then we'll move on completely to a different division. A different league altogether. We'll move on to the south of Scotland this time. Normally jump straight to the east, but we'll go south of Scotland for a change, mix it up and see what's happened over there. The results are as follows: Abbeyvale 0, Dalbeattie Star 1, Lockhart Thistle 6, St Cuthbert's Wanderers 0, Loch Maben
Your favourite.
Nithsdale Wanderers 3, Mid Annandale 0, Creetown 3, Newton Stewart 3, Stranraer Reserves 0, and Wigtown Bladnoch 3, Upper Annandale 1. Where we start, Chris, let's go with that Wigtown Bladnoch game. Wigtown Bladnoch, a team last season who I think shipped about 118 goals over the course of a season, starting the season off with a win, which for me sounds like a good result, given what limited knowledge I have of obviously of the South and what I've seen of them last season. But I mean, starting off the season against a win against Upper Annandale.
Yeah, brilliant. We talked about a wee bit in our preview last week. Wigtown, I think they were struggling to put a team together last season a lot of times, and they were playing teams with 8 men, 9 men. Commendable to the loyal players that played there, and obviously they were, as you mentioned, they shipped a lot of goals. Fantastic win, really good win, and I hope I've not seen too much, but I'm assuming they've got things on order in terms of their team, in terms of their squad, obviously to get the win. So that's obviously good news. They're obviously in the Scottish Cup prelims as well, obviously being a licensed team. So yeah, good luck to them. Hopefully they won't have the same issues as last season. It obviously hampered them as a team, shipping so many goals.
A couple of games to talk about in this league. The one that stands out for me is the one I can't say every time it always comes up. Loch Maben 0, Nithsdale Wanderers 3. Now Nithsdale Wanderers.
How did I know you were going to mention that? But yeah,
it's an interesting one. I've also just read the match report also, Chris, before we came on the podcast. So that's why I was so keen to jump to it, because this one is very interesting, I must admit. He finished 3-0, and I mentioned that Nithsdale Wanderers had signed Sean McKenzie and Cameron McKenzie, very, very talented players from the Sanquhar region, and they're from Sanquhar, not the Sanquhar region. Sanquhar is a town or a village. Both Sean McKenzie and Cameron McKenzie are very good players, very talented, and they I think both played for Glenafton last year, and I think were earmarked to play in the West Scotland Prem or First Division last season, but for whatever reason decided to play a local. Cameron McKenzie put across to win a penalty. Sean McKenzie put the ball in the back of the net from the spot, and then Sean McKenzie, they're 3-0 up by that point at half time. Sean McKenzie, I think, got a second, but towards the end of the game, something that certainly Sean and Cameron are quite accustomed to, shall we say, is red cards, and both managed to get red cards for having an exchange of words with the referee, which
Jesus.
Cameron got carded, quickly followed by Sean to having this still play out the last 20 minutes with 9 men. So only the first game of the season for this deal, and the McKenzie players have the red cards in the books. I think last season, I think Sean started the season with a 5-match ban from the previous season, so it's certainly something you get. He's a player that plays on the edge. I think he knows where the goal is. That's the other thing. He'll be a standout player, as I said the other week on this. But good result, and I think if the key to this Steel Wonders success for me will be keeping Sean McKenzie and Cameron McKenzie off the suspension list, and that's something you have to try and sort out for me.
And Stephen Degnan scoring goals, I think, as well. So
yeah, that's it. No, they've got the players. I think they're very capable, but we'll see what happens. Another team that we've talked a lot about in the south is Dalbeattie Star. They got their first win of the campaign, and obviously relegated from the Lowland League. Who knows what will happen in terms of we hope they bounce back. I think they're a team that we hope they'll bounce back and certainly get that playoff. It will be difficult. We've all said that about the playoff, but starting off a win, that's the only way to do it.
Yeah, away to Abbey Vale as well, and it's weird because that was our number 1 and 2, I guess, for the title challenge in the south. Obviously, Dalbeattie beating last year's champions, so good win. Farrell O'Sullivan getting the goal. As I said, I think Dean Watson got the man of the match as well. So Dalbeattie still have a few players that are obviously going to be great for the South of Scotland level. Yeah, I think it's still going to be between them two come the end of the season. But obviously, I think first blood to Dalbeattie in that first game. But I think one thing we will mention, though, it was a wee bit curious that, 6 games, 6 wins and 6 losses. There was no draws in the opening weekend, which is I don't know how rare that is in football, but it must be a rare thing.
It must be one of the statisticians can tell us when the last time that happened, certainly. But yeah, I mean, obviously from our perspective, Chris and I don't have loads of knowledge on the south of Scotland League. We will do our best we rely obviously heavily on social media for that, so it all depends on the coverage we get from the teams. But if Nithsdale Wonders continue to put up match reports on Facebook, then I'll be all over them checking out what's happened to make sure they stay on pace to win the South of Scotland League. Moving on, then we'll quickly cover off the other 2 big leagues within the Lowland League territory. That's the word I'm going to go with, Chris. The Lowland League territory. Remember we talked about it last week about that's the phrase that we're looking for. I found it, and we'll go with that. In the East of Scotland, we'll start off in the Premier Division, and it was Broxburn 2, Glenrothes 1, Dunbar United 4, Dundonald Bluebell 1, Haddington Athletic 3, Crossgates 1, Jeanfield Swifts 3, Inverkeith Hillfield Swifts 1, Musselburgh 1, Luncarty 0, Pennycook 5, Canoe 1, Tynecastle 5, Hillbeath Hawthorns 1, Hutchison Vale 3, Socket 1. Well, let's just start the game we just mentioned there. Hutchison Vale 3, Socket 1. That's not a result that I expected, Chris.
No, not at all. Hutchie Vale, fantastic win over Socket, and we both backed Socket. So one thing I will say about that game, not only did Hutchie Vale, deserve it, obviously, but there is a wee possible omen to that. Since Hutchie Vale actually beat Linlithgow Rose twice last season, albeit one of the results was overturned because I think they played an ineligible player or something like that. So there could possibly be an omen to that game. It's not a really great start from Socky, obviously losing, but Hutchie Vale are a team that can hurt you. They can pull off these results. I think we talked about them a wee bit last year because I think we both expect them to be quite near the bottom. And they actually done all right. And it was a bit like that with Tynecastle as well. Obviously, Pennycook winning, great. I mentioned something about Pennycook, obviously, Ben, in terms of the East of Scotland, that I didn't think they would sign a lot of Edinburgh United players, and it was the Edinburgh United guys that made the difference. Ben Wardlaw getting the hat-trick for Pennycook there, so fantastic start for them. I think one of the Dunbar beating Dundonald, that's a cracking result. Dunbar, we mentioned them, in the preview. I think they would do well. Dundonald always kind of a dark horse for the title. Really good result for Dunbar. I'm still not overly convinced with East of Scotland in terms of. We both went for Sauchie. Obviously, we like Sauchie. They always seem to be a really solid outfit. But I think I'm still at the more of the point. It could probably still be anyone's than being really, really as high on Sauchie as I was with Linlithgow last season. I would say.
Yeah, I mean, you don't win anything in July. Let's be realistic about that in any league. That's the thing. Let's not panic about anyone's performances too much. Obviously, we have maybe a little bit about Gretna earlier on the podcast, but apart from that, I mean, the top end of the table, there's plenty of football to be played. Teams are still maybe finding their feet in their own squads. There's probably finding there's trialists featuring for some teams as well. So there's definitely things that I would say not to worry too much about on that front. So, but we'll keep our eyes peeled again on what's happening in the East of Scotland. But there's plenty to look forward to for everyone.
We'll get a wee mention in for Linton Hotspur as well. They're just
of course.
Their first game in the East of Scotland. Obviously, I think they lost at home to West Calder. West Calder, we never actually called it, I think, in the preview, but they're certainly my favourites for the first division. Really good team, ended up winning on the day. But one thing I will say about Linton is, obviously we love them because they're the Spurs, but
White Hoops.
I was really impressed by their ground. There was a couple of sort of footage going about, and it really looks like I've never been down that way. It's kind of near the Scottish border, so I will hopefully get to see them in a game, probably more closer to me than them.
There'll be plenty of games, and there'll be plenty of games nearby you.
They look decent. By all accounts, it's going to be tough for them, but tough test first game of this season against a team that many think are going to win the league. So that was I guess what they call the benchmark.
Moving on then to the West of Scotland Football League. Start off in the Premier League. It was Atherley 4, Cumnock Juniors 3, B Juniors 1, Kirkintilloch Rob Roy 0, Clydebank 2, Benburb 3, Darvel 1, Glenafton Athletic 2, Gartcairn 1, Largs Thistle 1, Pollock 1, Auchinleck Talbot 0, St Cadoc's 1, Hurlford 3, and Troon 2, Irvine Meadow 1. I think for me, quite a number of surprises going against the odds book, if you like, if you're looking at the kind of favourites versus underdogs in this sort of situation based on teams recruiting and how they went. I think we'll start off with that one right at the top. Athlete 4, Cumnock 3. I think for me, the moment Cumnock seem a bit of disarray now. I don't really know what's going on. Jordan Moore back in the side, grabbed a goal, I believe, on Saturday. Jamie Wilson's was on the bench. Kyle McCausland isn't even playing. I think he must be injured. 3, I think for me, key players that are missing, that are not featuring as regularly as they should be. I think Jamie Wilson is a staple in that midfield for Cumnock and not even on the starting lineup for whatever reason. Obviously, there's been a change of manager there. I don't know if there's been the new manager come in, maybe likes his try to bring his own guys in, and maybe doesn't like the older guard at Cumnock, but very, very good players. That's the thing. I think to leave out someone like Jamie Wilson in your team is a massive decision. And Atherley, we've got to give them a lot of credit. It's a good result for Atherley. They were a team that were kind of on the cusp of relegation last year, kind of fighting for that last spot in the safety zone in the Premier League, and they managed to do that. And it's a great win to start their season.
Yeah, I do wonder. Obviously, I called Atherley to be relegated last season. I called them to be in that spot this season. I wonder if it's an Edinburgh Uni situation where I'll call them to be relegated and I'll actually save them. So, in terms of that result, it's fantastic for Atherley. I mean, when we talk negatively about teams struggling and whatever, obviously we're not wishing them that. So I wish all the best for Atherley. Hopefully they can prove me wrong, but I think the issue we have when we're covering so many teams and we got on with so many people and whatnot, unfortunately, someone has to finish 16th, 15th, 14th. It's just football. It's just competition. We don't always call it right, obviously, and that's when people love giving us belters. But we try our best, and obviously it's still early season. But impressive win for Arthur. Great result against what you mentioned. A Cumnock side. We talked about it in the preview. We do feel like there's something going on there. Not quite sure what, but just doesn't seem right at the moment.
I think there's definitely. I don't know anything specific about Cumnock. I think that's the thing I would like to point out. People maybe think that I have some sort of knowledge. I don't. Believe it or not, I don't have loads of knowledge of what's happening in the west of Scotland behind the scenes, contrary to popular belief sometimes. But I think there's something there. It doesn't seem quite right. I've seen some stuff suggesting that Jordan Moore is on the move and will be potentially making a transfer to another Premier League team who we'll cover off just shortly. We'll move on into the game between the champions Beith and Kirkintar Rob Roy. It was a 1-0 win for Beith on what was their flag day. And one thing we probably want to talk about, quite important. Obviously, the result is a good result. You want to start the season off and with a win, but I think the major talking point about Beith is something that's been kind of rumbling around all summer, Chris, and a man that you'll be sad to hear about moving on is your man Josh Fowler. He wasn't present in the squad yesterday against Kirkintar, but he has since made a move to Gulf United, based in Dubai, the United Arab Emirates, I believe. A great opportunity for him, and he's moved on, and he'll be a massive loss to Beith, Chris.
Yeah, I was looking a wee bit at that squad. I believe Gary Hooper, the former Celtic striker, is there. And I read somewhere, I don't know if it's true, I've not actually fact-checked it, but they're actually managed by Stephen Taylor, the former Newcastle United defender, who's probably best well known for saving a shot on the line and pretending he was like hit by a sniper. I don't know if you remember.
That's right. Yeah.
It looks like a good move. We were talking about scholarships earlier. I believe Gulf United are a team that will do that. They allow, it's mainly Americans and Canadians scholarships to their squad. So interesting if Josh has maybe got one.
I think just when you read that, like I'm reading kind of B's statement there, mentioned that they both had trials with Motherwell and Kilmarnock, obviously early in the season, and the club quite rightly wouldn't stand in Josh's way if it intimated that his heart was set on a move to Dubai that will be life changing, and we are pleased that agreement. From what I understand, from looking at that Gulf United side and that kind of division, that the players are paid really well, and that's probably something that's quite important, let's be honest, and experience. And if you have opportunities there, then that's definitely something to explore. And for Josh, it's one of those ones you can go and see what it's like, find out if he really does like it. And I'm sure that Beith, if it doesn't work out, that they'll be ready to take him back a heartbeat if it doesn't. But we all hope, I think, that it does work out well for Josh, because it does look like a great opportunity, and that's something that players. It was great to see his name mentioned amongst Motherwell and Kilmarnock earlier on in the kind of pre-season and things. And you've talked about him, Chris, loads. Probably, I wonder if someone down in Gulf United have been playing Football Manager too much and spotted this guy's talents and ability and done a bit of scouting and kind of brought him in on that basis.
Behind the scenes a wee bit here, Ben, but I actually just moved them off to Gulf United in Football Manager. So I done all his stats as well. He's got a wee bit of an upgrade, I'll put it that way. So, but yeah, I did. I think from this time last year, I was talking about him before he was, West of Scotland winner and all that sort of stuff. So, not taking the full credit there, but yeah, Gulf United, where's my finder's fee?
So somebody's been sitting there playing their game and been like, sign the boy Fowler. He's at Beith. He's brilliant. Chris from the Catchup says he's great. Maybe they listen to the podcast and they've realised he's brilliant. But yeah, best of luck to Josh. We hope he does well. I have nothing but good things to say about that boy. He's a talented player. And, I'm sure he'll be a success out in Gulf United. Moving on then, a couple of games that I talk about across the rest of West of Scotland. Clydebank 2, Benenburg 3. Title's over for Clydebank.
And yeah, I told you last week that they wouldn't win. Well, one game, eh?
Yeah, I mean, it's what it is. I think that's the thing. I think you see a lot of people panicking all that about performances and things like that. It's the first game of the season. Cloudbank have in the past started quite slow, but finished the season off quite strongly. So it's a great result for Benburb as well, coming up from the first division last season. Probably haven't strengthened their squad too much, had I said personally, Benburb.
Lost a few as well.
Yeah, absolutely, and managing to get a result. But yeah, I'm sure Clydebank will be right up at the top end of the table come the end of the season. We're not worried about Clydebank at this point. Another result that stands out for me: Darvel 1, Glenafton Athletic 2. Again, a great result for Glenafton. Darvel, quite surprised to be honest. I think they still have a strong squad.
Which they'll be upgrading, I hear, soon.
Yeah, believe so. The West Scotland League's very own Fabrizio Romano, aka Ped, has mentioned that Jamie Wilson and Jordan Moore will be moving to Darvel potentially for a collective sum of money of around £20,000, which is a lot of dough for two players. I think Jordan Moore's probably quite well worth a big fee, and I think if you're coming up, you probably think to yourself at this point in time, let's cut our losses, let's get the money in, let's go and reinvest it and bring in players to get us to make sure we're firstly safe and ideally challenging and competing on all the competitions that they have, because it's certainly not that case just now. But yeah, I think it'll be an interesting one to watch over the next couple of weeks, while not Jordan Moore and potentially Jamie Wilson make that shift across. Elsewhere then, Pollock 1, Auchinleck Talbot 0. First game of the season for Pollock, first game of the season for everyone. I don't know why I have to say that, but it's certainly the case. It's probably quite a close game. It seems like a really good goal that won it for Pollock in the end. And again, nothing major to worry about for Auchinleck is concerned. It's two teams that will be at the top end of the league come the end of the season, and there it was always going to be a close one. I think that's the main thing to talk about there. Final one to talk about then, Hurlford United beat St Cadoc's 3-1. Hurlford looking pretty good from what I've seen in the pre-season. People starting to talk about them already. As being at the top end, I wasn't too sure, but I thought St Cadoc's looked really good in pre-season, and got a bit of a surprise, I think, against Hurlford, and a good result for them. And yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think this West Scotland Premier League, that's for sure. We'll obviously keep in touch with what's going on there.
Are we going to give your co-winnings a wee mention?
I mean, we can. Chris brought up the good old co-winning Rangers. We played our first match of the season against Cambuslang Rangers at Somerville Park. And what do you say about that? I think it was one of those kind of, I think I used the word meh quite a bit and certainly summed that one up. I think we didn't take our chances when we had them defensively. We had made some individual mistakes, but I'm not panicking too much. I think the one positive to take away is we don't have to go back to Cambuslang again this season, which is probably positive. I think we lost a ball. There wasn't not enough match balls. We had to give a training ball to play the game. Eventually lost that and then put another one in the park. So that was great. That was summed up our day, I think, as a team. But I think there's positive to take. We're good middle to front. Defensively, it's a new defence that we're going to be having to kind of gel like we're talking about with some of the other teams. There's nothing to worry about for me right now. I think you do get that kind of panicky kind of, oh my god, we drew 2 weeks with Cambuslang. Cambuslang had signed, I think, quite a few players from amateur last season, but let's be clear, he signed some players from amateur. Guys like Gary Fleming, who more than capable of playing at this level. He played at centre half yesterday. Gary's very clever. He knows exactly what he's doing. And he was at Corn Rangers for a couple of seasons. He's a good guy. I really like Gary, and he's a good player. Still got it. Knows.
I think one of the questions I'll ask you, Ben, is how did Graham Boyd get on? I did notice that you signed him. Fairly decent signing, I think.
Graham Boyd, yeah, I think for Boyd is that probably lacking a bit of match sharpness. Don't think he did a pre-season. Having left, come look at the end of the season. Not sure where he was before that, but I think he's got ability and he got a goal, which is what you want from your strikers. That's I think the important thing. He was there and around the box and got the goal when required, and that's important as well. So yeah, good to get him in, a good experienced player for us as well, to play up front with Dylan Mackey. And so yeah, really, I'm pretty positive about our chances this season. I don't think there's anything major to worry about. But yeah, that's one of the, obviously, that's the first division. And probably one other thing to talk about in the first division is the JBs, as I'm referring to them now these days. Johnston Borough, they won 4-1, I think, 4-0.
Oh, that's terrible.
4-0.
Should have been 10.
4-0 against Renfrew. Renfrew promoted side from the second division, but I think it was pretty convincing. Mr. Lafferty was on the score sheet a couple of times, which you do absolutely bloody expect. I did notice that the Renfrew Twitter handler used some pound signs rather than L's and F's on his Twitter, which, I'll be honest, right? I like a laugh or a joke, and I like pettiness as much as the next guy, but I thought that was quite poor. And I fucking hate Kyle Lafferty, let's be honest. But yeah, I thought it was pretty crass.
I never noticed that, actually. I think we follow Renfrew, actually. I thought it was
pretty poor. I thought it was pretty low.
You do. That's the type of thing you do once for a laugh, but you didn't repeat it.
I don't even think once is it's funny. Kyle's here to play football at this level. We get it. We 100% get it. Kyle's not the only one that's probably playing in Johnston Borough for money. Let's be frank about that as well. And I can't believe here I'm on a podcast defending Kyle Lafferty. It's something I never thought I'd say, but
imagine if people didn't do things for money, though. I guess no one would ever work. I guess so.
Exactly, but I mean, it's what it is. But yeah, I'm looking forward to playing them. That's all I'll say on that matter. But yeah, that's pretty much it from us on the official Catchup podcast. Get us on Twitter at the official Catchup. Get us on all the podcast channels, official Catchup, of course. YouTube, hit the like, subscribe button, do all that. It doesn't cost you a penny. It means a lot to us. So please do it. We'll be back probably next Sunday, like we always do, with another edition of the official Catchup. But until then, have a good one.